Hi, everyone. It's Martha Novak, and this is a show called Real Talk with Martha Novak, said person. I'm awfully glad to be with you today and to have Facebook Live working, which it didn't last week. Sorry about that. I hope you listened in on Blog Talk Radio. We are doing the best we can with the technology we have up here in the high hill mountains. And so we sometimes we just can't help it if it goes down. Thank you so much for being such a good audience and understanding that, and knowing that if you don't get me on Facebook Live, you can always switch over to blogtalkradio.com. And if that's not working, you can switch me on at Facebook Live. Sometimes we just don't know what's going to work, you know. I hope you all are having a very good week and that you're healthy and well out there. A lot of wacky things happening in the world right now. And I think we can all benefit by what we're talking about today, quite frankly, which is consciousness and enlightenment. And what that exactly means. I've got an engaging business. What I do is try to capture very hard information and cut it down to size. I thought about talking about quantum physics today, if you want to read about it. And what I have to say, The Life You Want, this is what my lecture today is being taken from. This is a book I wrote several years ago, and there are three important factors that still are vitally important to you and your happiness. One is, what is God? What is God? Two is, what is spiritual surrender? And three, how to use this energy to enjoy your life and make it a wonderful thing. I was reminded this morning to remind you, in my meditation, that the only God that is usable for you is the one you are. And that's an odd concept that we use God, but not in an egoic way. We are using the energy that we are to create the life that we have. Sometimes the life we have, because we don't use it well, is not the one we necessarily want. It might be the one we need until we learn something else, and those are different things. So, with that said, let's do a prayer, put us all on the same page, and then I'm going to launch off into today's lesson. One of the things I want you to know, too, is that you can't, I appreciate so much that you listen to these shows, but you can't have my God. You can't have the church's God. You can't have nature's God. All of this is part of God and the oneness of God, but you're a part of that too. And that's the one that you can use. That's the one we want you to be in touch with in these shows, you see? Okay, that's it. Dear God, thank you so much for this wonderful opportunity to be together again. All our dear friends are clicking on. We thank you so much. We now ask that we see, hear, sense, and know what you would have us do as we listen to this program. We ask to open to the truth that lies in your enlightenment, that we may see a path very clearly to walk one step at a time. We thank you so much for what we have, even if it's not what we think we want. We thank you so much for everything, the joy and the pain, the laughter and the tears, all of it, a part of a dynamic life to which we're open to now. Thank you, dear God, for all of this. Now we say we know nothing, for it is the you through us and through all things that know everything. We open to that you may give us information about ourselves. Thank you so much, And we say this prayer in your name and in the name of the Ascended Masters, our love-centered guides and friends, and in the name of each and every person listening to the show. Thank you. And so it is. Amen. All right, kiddo kings. Let's talk about what consciousness is and then what enlightenment is. Consciousness is simply, and I'm sorry about the barking dog, consciousness is simply being conscious of what you weren't conscious about before. And it's a part of this wonderful esoteric journey. The interesting thing is the more you study yourself and how you are psychologically wired, the interesting thing is that you'll find everyone else, and underneath that, you start finding this oneness with everything. And that's who God is. God is, I said, that's what God is, because God is a what, not a who. It's energy, you see? God is energy, not the old man on the throne that we decided God was when we were little, but energy. Even in the Bible, God said, I am that I am, not who I am. You, my dears, are the who of God. You are the who of God. Think of the Trinity that we were taught, right? The Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. The Father is that innate knowing inside you. What we're calling on in our prayer this morning to talk to you, that's the Father, okay? The Holy Ghost is also what we referred to this morning, and that is everything that is God but is not you. You see? That's the Holy Ghost, the exterior. What's the thing that unites them both? It's you. It's you in the human experience. Now, why do I say the human experience when we have so much trouble with that? Because until you embrace that humanness, you can't find the true divinity. Oh, we can pretend, and we're good at pretending and self-deception. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the true peace. Okay? So what the Bible was telling us was that Jesus is holding that place as the Son, but he's holding it for all of us, you see? Because that's the uniting factor, this marvelous human experience when we learn to embrace everything, stay in the moment, and unite it all. Now we're talking about something else. We're talking about enlightenment. It's the state of actually merging with as much as a human can, with the ascended mind of God. Now, why do I call it the ascended mind of God? Because everything is God. Everything is God. We can't escape it. Even atheists are spiritual people because they believe in the lack of God, the absence of God. But that's still God because you can't escape it. It's like a fish in water. You can't escape it. So you say, how's the water? And they go, what water? I mean, I'm just playing with being a fish right now, huh? Guys, it's just everywhere. It's energy. Everything is energy. You can deny all God you want because you were hurt by the church or you think that spiritual teachings are silly. But some of them are not beyond what is out there in popular lore. Guys, there is a reality here. And it is a journey of energy. And that's very powerful for everyone that decides to explore that. It is the esoteric journey because it's this marvelous spiritual gyre. There's something underneath and something underneath. It's the most fascinating journey anybody has ever taken before. I hope that'll be you. You're certainly listening to this show. All right. So what enlightenment is advanced states of consciousness. seeing more, being conscious of more, and merging with this ascended mind of God. You see, God also appears as the lack of itself, according to what you believe, right? You've heard me say this almost every show. But God appears as the absence of itself, and that is seized on by the ego child's mind, the part of us that thinks like a child, that is a child. That's why we think God is there in the good times and not there in the bad times, you see? But God is also the fullness of itself. Absolutely. Look at nature, and if you left it alone, what it would become. An overabundance of itself, right? All right. So guys, this is about, these shows are about how to be a more conscious person. And if you go far enough, it leads to enlightenment. And enlightenment truly is a miraculous unfolding of more in every way. More love, more information, more miracles, more trust, more confidence, more health, more harmony, more peace, more synchronicity, grace, ease, gratitude, abundance, creativity, you name it. These things are not earned by being a good little boy and girl like we've been taught. They are opened to by your becoming more and more aware, more and more conscious, and more enlightened. This is how it happens. You've heard me say over and over again that the path to all of this is awareness to consciousness to enlightenment. So what of the person that stands around and says, well, I don't have any issues? They've got some awareness to have. That's all. Because everybody has them, my dears. You can have the happiest home in the world and still have issues. One of the things that I mentioned, I believe it was last week, even though we weren't on Facebook, we were still on blog. So by all means, please go back and listen to that if you didn't hear it. And you'll hear me worrying about Facebook Live on that too, because I couldn't understand why I wasn't getting that. All right. One of the things that I always say is that we are two selves. We are the ego child's mind, this part of us that thinks like a child, that is fear-based and self-indulgent. It's just who we are. It's part of the human experience. But it's a tiny little dot in the scheme of things. The problem is, without work on ourselves, that little dot contains all the energy. But there's this whole vast thing to explore beyond that little dot. And this is the higher self-mind. This is your potential. This is your potential. And I hope that you all will take up the exploration of this. We all get into it for lousy reasons. I wanted to be a better actor, a better writer, a better whatever I did. The fact is, I would call my art tight. It was tight because I was afraid. When the fear drops away and you're no longer afraid, what can you do then? You see? Real important. Now, you could say that real consciousness does not awaken until every part of you believes. What are the parts of you? Well, your mental body, your emotional body, your physical body, your spiritual body. We've talked about those four bodies. Your spiritual body really being all the bodies because it's energy. It's the energetic body. Pure energy, right? And that's why you continue after your physical death. Real enlightenment, however, does not awaken until every part of you knows. So it's the difference in consciousness in believing it all and in wanting to believe it all, and enlightenment in absolutely knowing what you know. That's a real big difference. And I'll go on to say that I think then when you're waking up, I think the whole thing, the reason you're called to sometimes what we're working on right now is that you want to believe. That's the awareness. That's the first stage of this. You want to believe. But you do then move into believing, and then you move into knowing. I can't remember the name of the book. I'm so sorry. I remember the guy's name is Sam Harris. And he wrote a real controversial book 20 years ago or so. And he just, first of all, he's an incredibly smart man. And he disparaged just about all religions. Now, I don't know what bee he has to do that. The phrase is bee up his butt, so forgive me, Sam Harris, for saying that. But the first part of it was enormously angry. I loved the second part of it. What he said was fascinating, I've got to tell you. But by the second half, he said the only thing that really is going to save us is consciousness. I just love that, of course. To sum up, religions are a man-made thing. They're a dogma, therefore they have limits. Now, I happen to feel a little differently than he does. I think as long as nothing hurts anybody, as long as you don't think you've got the only path to God, and there's not a lot of ego involved with your spirituality and what you believe, I think that it's all wonderful what anybody uses as steps along the way. Religion, too. I enjoy all religions. But I know what I believe, right? See? Okay. Which may be quite different. But guys, it's extremely important for you to work yourself into knowing. Now, let's talk about knowing for a minute, because the knowing I'm talking about also is a moving, flexible thing. You can't be swayed by somebody else's opinion or hard sell, or by the fear they are trying to instill. But you're also open to what this God in you, the Father, is telling you as you dig deeply and spiral down into deeper and deeper levels of consciousness. I got real tickled. I'm thinking, and I don't know whether you're listening today. I think you are. As a matter of fact, I think I see you up there. Years ago, a dear friend of mine said to me, I'm leaving because everything you talk about changes. And then she came back a couple of years later and said, I'm back because, yeah, I understand that now. But things do change. They evolve. They get deeper and deeper and deeper. And certainly, as a teacher, I'm interested in that. That's all I've ever been interested in is finding out all those levels and translating what I can. Okay. The thing that happens to you, first of all, I guess I should tell you a little bit about my experience. And I'm not going to go into a lot of detail only because it's boring, because it's mine, you know. But I have worked on myself since my 20s. Going from one person to another, by the way, knowing intuitively that I was supposed to be with the person that I was with, knowing when I wasn't learning anymore, and leaving. There was always another teacher there. It got so in the advanced stages of this that my old teacher would introduce me to my new teacher. Isn't that wild? So I kept going, and then one day there weren't any teachers. And I realized that all of this was inside me. And I started listening, and I started developing even more of a program, a more sophisticated program. And it all came fleshing out, as you hear, and certainly as my clients hear when we have personal sessions. It was a wonderful journey. But I can remember many small surrenders along the way where you wake up to things. Where you wake up to being honest, that you have to be honest, that you're putting on an act, that you are not happy all the time like you put forth. I address this in this book, that there are things in your life, things that people say to you, things that are realizations of your own, where you go, wow, wait a minute. That's an important thing for me to take in and to think about. I don't really understand it right now, but I'm asking the question about it. And, all questions are answered in this world, if they are. So those things are very important to remember and to keep. But then, if you work on yourself, all of a sudden, one day I woke up and I was going to a spiritual meeting, and I got dressed. It was normal. I washed my hair. I put on clothes. I went, and there were little separate meditation rooms in this house before we all got together, and I was put in one of those, and all of a sudden, completely unanticipated, I broke. The ego child's mind hole broke. And I cried, I think, for 25, 26 hours straight. I'm sure these people that didn't know me at this meeting thought I was nuts, but you know what? I didn't care. It wasn't about anything except this incredible knowing. I saw my life as the perfect whole. Rather than saw, I sensed it had all been perfect. Not one moment had been wasted, and I had wasted a lot of time, I would have said. And there was an absolute knowing that at any point at the time of my death, it will have all been perfect. It was a powerful, powerful realization. And I was left with this incredible knowing that I was never alone in my entire life, and I would never be. That God was right there at the center of everything. If I sound a little verklempt, I guess I am, because it was the most meaningful experience to me. It stayed with me forever. Guys, Sam Harris also put forth in the book that whatever you believe, whether it is a religion or whether it is in the spiritual realms, whatever you believe, and I'm not saying that there are not spiritual realms in religion, I'm simply saying that's, a tight belief. So, the lines are blurred here in many cases. But what he is putting forth, and I think he's right, is that whatever you believe should travel with you always, in every circumstance, no matter what's going on in your life, no matter how horrible something is, no matter how grief-stricken you are, no matter how afraid, that you absolutely know that God is right there with you, right in the center of it all, the light and the dark, everything. and that God you no longer hold the belief that God deserts you in the bad times and is only there in the good times, and that you have to be a good little girl and boy for God to pay any attention to you at all. Guys, those things are gone. So it's extremely, extremely important for you to realize that what you're going toward, if you haven't found it already, is the absolute knowing that if it's happening, it's supposed to happen. And if you haven't gotten what you want, in the end, it's not the end. Okay. All right. So I go on to say in this book that while consciousness is the adult mind emerging from the muck and mire of the ego child's mind, enlightenment is God's mind merging with yours. You're being finally open to your merging with the mind of God. This becomes very important, and I mentioned this when we were talking about manifestation a few weeks ago, because guys, you have to think like the Creator. You can't think like a spoiled little child wanting what you want when you want it. This has got to be right action, perfect time. This has got to, and you don't know that, by the way, but God does. That God, who you are. Now get out of the way and let what you want emerge. But you first have to be in the mind of God. Fantasy is one of the things that takes you out of the mind of God. All of us are children prone to fantasy in our early childhood homes. Fantasy is one of the ways we handle emotion and not knowing how to deal with the emotion that is in our homes. We go into a fanciful state. Now, I think fantasy is wonderful. If you're an artist, you put it on the canvas or on the page. As a writer, you put it in the sculpture. But I think fantasy in our lives is not a good thing, because fantasy is its own reward. You go there to feel better. You cannot create from fantasy like you can from a vision, a plan. It's completely different. Fantasy is just where you go to soothe the child. You win the Academy Award there without ever knowing what you're doing in the craft, you see, of acting. All right. I will say that, that marvelous Chinese proverb or adage that says, chop wood, carry water. Let's see, it's before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water, is a very powerful and true thing. Your life doesn't look different. Everybody sees you. You go about your tasks. Things are completely different. First of all, in many cases, if you have been trained in this, which I am trying to do as much as I can on the radio, you start seeing everything as energy. It's all about energy. It's all about the effective use and movement of energy. That's really, really fascinating. And that frees you from a lot of personality, It isn't about personality. It's whether you did the energy well or not. It's not about whether you failed. It's about whether you use the energy well enough. And if you didn't, learn something from that and use it well the next time, you see. You can't force any of this, too. I need to say that. You can't force consciousness. No COVID. Just cold outside and a runny nose, by the way. So sorry about that. You cannot force. Consciousness is something that evolves organically. I have an image that I always think about when I talk about this, and the work that we do to free ourselves into higher thought and into these realms that we're talking about right now. And I see a hot air balloon. Now, this hot air balloon has huge ropes that tie it down to the ground. And it has medium-sized ropes. And it has all sorts of little ropes in between. And then it has threads tying it down to the ground. So when we start work on you, we are cutting through some of the really big ropes that hold you down. What are these called? Fixations. It's where your energy is fixated in the emotional body. It's things that are unresolved from your childhood. And we chop those down, and we chop some of the next size ropes down. How do I know what they are? You give them to me, by the way. You give them to me. Even if you don't remember your childhood, you remember enough. And then we go past that together and find these things. We keep going, we keep going, we keep going. Then, one day without any warning at all, the rest of the little threads and ropes and small ones snap, and the balloon's in the air. So it's not a question of you're saying, well, I've got 45 of these ropes left to go. Nope. You won't know that, as I didn't. I had just gotten up, average day, getting ready to go to this thing. Didn't know why I was going necessarily, but was going. My dears, it's a marvelous, incredible experience, but you're not going to orchestrate it. You're just going to quiet and humbly do the work on yourself, and let's see where it goes. It goes right smack dab into your potential. Everything does. Okay. So, the reason I brought up the adage, before enlightenment, after enlightenment thing, chop wood, carry water. That's really the way it is, you know. We're so afraid of going there. Our lives are going to change. Well, the perceptions of everything changes. That's what you're changing. It isn't that you're going to lose touch with people. It isn't that you may or you may not. I mean, people do tend to come and go in life. They just do. That's just a truism. The ones that are supposed to be there remain. But your perceptions will alter. And one of the perceptions that alters is your compassion. You'll have so much compassion for people because you have first found compassion for yourself. You see how everything was perfect. Even those things that you call mistakes in your life are all perfect. They're all perfect. They were all perfect. Now, is that a light switch that goes on there and you're different from forever? Well, yes and no. And here's what I mean. Yes, in that something has happened in your big surrender that you have not orchestrated, and that is that this absolute knowledge that it's all perfect. Everything was perfect. Everything is perfect. You just know it. And you know God is right there with you. But then comes living. Then comes, what is life like with this new perception? And it's really fascinating. You just need a little time. It is an organic process. Nothing rushed or pressured. You've just simply changed your mind about everything. This is such an internal process, guys. What I'm describing to you is the thing that, in my guesstimation, is what happened to Jesus when Jesus disappeared for those 18 years in the Bible. How can you write about this? I'm trying to tell you about it to the best of my ability. But it was such a personal thing. My journey to me. Your journey, by the way, to you. Jesus' journey to himself. That you almost just can't write about it or talk about it in any kind of articulate detail. So that he disappeared for those 18 years, I think is quite literally, as well as metaphorically, significant that there's nothing written about that. I don't really think we can do that well. I think it may be, I don't know, it may be telling us to go on this journey ourselves, and that we too will emerge with that higher self-sensibility, that changed experience that Jesus did. Okay. How you experience enlightenment really is unique to you. And I think that's what the silence says too. How we do it is unique to us. I had several feelings in my experience around this time. One, that my house that I was moving into, I can't remember now whether I had found the house or not, would be some sort of healing center and a center for progressive thought. Now, that was all I was given. And I've told several friends about that. What I didn't realize at the time, but what quickly emerged after this experience of surrender, was that it was going to come through me. I had no idea. I'd be delighted to have a forum where I introduce other people, because nothing was coming through me before that. Not much. I mean, I was a good acting teacher. But dear hearts, there's so much inside of you that you don't have any idea about. Talents and gifts and abilities that emerge. Now, how do you have them emerge? Certainly, we're talking about this spiritual transformation, and that's certainly the way to do it as far as I'm concerned, because that's the way I did it. But before that, are you making the most of your talents and gifts and abilities right now? In other words, I have several friends that are marvelous painters. They really are. They're so much better than I'll ever be. And yet they don't go and take a course. It's enough that they just paint when they feel like it. But they have such talent that could be developed. See, guys, I want you to realize that you're stewards of whatever you've been given. You are stewards of that. That means go and develop it. Go and develop yourself. It's extremely important to do so. And then by the time that you have a transformation that's really happening to you, then you'll have a lot of tools in place to use all that according to your potential. But learn what you can as you go along. I think one of the nicest things to do for yourself is to, if you have a talent in something, go take a course. Go take some courses on it. You don't have to go back to school. There are plenty of things. My dear friends have marvelous writing courses that they take, and painting courses. There are fabulous courses all over the place. If you've got a talent, go use it, and go use it right now. because it has everything to do with you using it later in your potential, or able to draw, or to be able at that time to draw incredible analogies to it, as I do from time to time with theater and film. Come on, kids. You're a resource waiting to happen in many cases. One of the things I do want you to know is this is not a peak experience. As I am working with people, a lot of time people have peak experiences, and they make us feel good, don't they? Oh, wow, it's this state of pure bliss. The thing that is different about that from what I'm talking about in terms of true spiritual surrender is that peak experience doesn't necessarily live in the world. Sweeties, you are here for a reason. You are. You're here for a reason. You are human. You have talents, gifts, and abilities of some sort that you have been given. You are exploring them or not. Peak experiences can often be related to God pulling back the curtain, showing us what we can do. We go, oh my God! The curtain shuts, and we don't know what to do with that. This surrender that I'm talking about, this enlightenment, this consciousness, high degree of consciousness, is about its usability too in the world. You have a plan. You take the courses, you have a plan. You're focused. You don't get off the track. Now, that's what I'm talking about. You're making good decisions. Even if you make a bad decision, you correct it. You see what you did wrong. You correct it next time. You learn how to take calculated risks, not just risks. All right. Let me put on the table that sometimes those things are to be learned. I in my working with clients, and you all know I'm a business coach too, what happens is people are ashamed of not knowing things like this, not knowing what to do in certain situations of business or in families or in whatever the problem is that comes up, the challenge is that comes up. And the fact is that you learn what you're supposed to learn when you're supposed to learn it. I'll never forget being in an acting class years and years ago when I was young. I was in my early 20s, I think. And I was doing a very hard role, a role that was a little too advanced for me, quite frankly. Very subtle. And I got up in a scene study class and I did it. I don't even remember what the play was. But anyway, I remember the teacher going on for 20 minutes to a half an hour afterwards about how I missed this and how I missed this and how I missed this and how I missed this, and how I didn't see that was a change and where. And I just couldn't believe all that was in there, which I had not seen. I had not seen it. And I was feeling less and less and less and less confident in myself. And after class was over, I went to her and I said, how do you see all this? I didn't see all that. And I'm trying to beat myself up for not seeing all that. And she said something so wise to me, and I've since said it to other people. Well, she said, you'll never forget it now, will you? You see, I was going into beating myself up, which is a use of energy, when I should have been going, okay, I will always look for these things in everything I do from now on. I get it. And she was right. In that one phrase, you'll never forget it now, will you? She turned the energy from that to this. And I saw such wisdom in that. I say that to you. You be careful what you do with your energy. If when you hear something like that, that is meant to instruct and take you forward, if you go, oh my God, I should have looked for the drama in that. I was very involved in my own drama back then. Most people are when they're in their 20s. But you must grow out of that. Drama does you no good at all. Put it on the stage, on the canvas, in your sculpture. Do not use it in your life. Get it out as soon as possible, because that's how it does. It's not letting you process through the thing you should process, so that you can pick up what you need to remember for the rest of your life and integrate it. And this is one of the reasons that we keep making very bad decisions, and the same decisions over and over again, and following the same path or pattern over and over and over again. We didn't learn anything because we're too busy beating ourselves up. Stop it. Doesn't do any good at all. Learn from it. Be that kind of opportunist. Certainly there's an ego opportunist, and nobody wants to be an ego opportunist. But let me tell you, there's an opportunistic quality about seize what you've done and make sure you don't do it again. Wow. Okay. This transformation, the ultimate transformation, is extremely powerful. And when I talk about that, I want you to know there are little surrenders all through your life. They're wonderful. Little surrenders. I'm going to give up being self-deceptive is a good one. I'm going to give up lying to myself. But first of all, you have to see how you're doing all of this, right? At one point when you investigate some of these things, you go, okay, I get it now. And I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm going to try to be as honest as I possibly can. Emotionally honest, I'm talking about. Nobody would steal something out of somebody's bag. Emotionally honest. Because we deceive ourselves all over the place. And sometimes we've got to see that we're deceiving ourselves, and we don't want to see that. All these small surrenders are wonderful. And they're part of your getting ready for the big transformation, the big surrender. You keep going. Don't look for it. It's just out there. That's all you need to know. It's out there inevitably. As I work on myself one day. But don't look for it. Because the interesting thing is, we may start out looking for that. I want that. I want to cross that like a goal post. So I can, make the goal. And that in itself is going to slow you down and not get you there. Because it's all ego-driven. You'll get to a point in your work where it doesn't matter anymore. You just are finding such love in you. Finding such truth that exists in the world in terms of energy. That you just have to go on. I think I said in this book that it's rather like James Earl Jones' character in Field of Dreams. I don't know what's in that cornfield, but I've got to go find out. I'm paraphrasing. That's what this is like. At one point in your process, no longer are you trying to not have your work be tight. It doesn't matter anymore. You're just freeing yourself and finding new things. And it doesn't matter what you're finding either. Because here's the irony about this. The ego, sometimes when we first start things, you don't want to find anything bad about yourself. You already have the strong suspicion that there's something bad is down there. Excuse me, I'm going to keep drinking tea. That's the ego child's mind. That's the part of you that doesn't know yourself very well, darlings. Ego child's mind's not really capable of looking at itself. It's too self-involved. That's not, you don't have a perspective. It is in the higher self mind that you have a perspective, because then the little ego child's mind is just a pinprick of that you have such compassion for ultimately, you see. You know, keep in mind that the ego child's mind knows nothing of the highest self. It knows nothing. It is all alone in the universe, according to it. But it is the higher self-mind that knows all about that, because that little pinprick's contained in this marvelous thing. All of us have the ability to get beyond the ego child's mind. All of us have the ability to go on and follow this esoteric, marvelous path, this marvelous journey into our true potential. I think that we are living reflections of that true potential in our ego child's mind state. I work with a lot of artists in my time. I've worked with a lot of everything in my time, quite frankly, but artists. And, you know, if an artist comes to me, a musician, several people have said, I'm afraid to start this process because I don't want my work to suffer. And it's like, what in the world makes you think your work is going to suffer when you're truly inspired? You'll do better work than you've ever done. So our ego child's mind is going to tell us a lot of things. And by the way, it's all based on limitations. It's all based on limitations. You can't do this. You don't have enough talent. You're lesser than. You're always wrong. Nobody ever listens to you. Those are all common things that the ego child's mind says to us, isn't it? That'll never happen. You never get what you want. But are they lies, or are they the truth? They're really lies, guys. Lies you haven't confronted. And every time you believe them, and they influence your life to go a certain direction, because they always do, all right? You have told yourself again, by the sheer nature of your acceptance of them, that that is true, and that there really is something to fear out there. It's not true, kids. I've done whole courses on challenging lies with my clients. Hello. Hang on, kids. I've done whole courses on this because people have a very, very hard time knowing what the truth is, because they believe the lie for so long. When I've even challenged advanced people in my advanced classes, well, what's the truth here? They can't tell me. So we have to work together on it. Well, here's what the truth is. It's not 180 degrees the other way. No, that's a fantasy. Come back. What is the truth? So I am always wrong becomes I've made a mistake this one time. I did this instead of this. Here's what I learned from it. Here's what I'm going to remember from now on. Here's how this is going to work in terms of what I'm going to think about. And I'll make sure that just doesn't happen again by the grace and goodness of God. That's the truth. The other thing about our statements, like I've just given you, is there's no time limit on them. It isn't just about this event. It's about you being wrong the rest of your life and have always been wrong. You are just wrong. And the sentence changes from I have made a mistake to I'm just one big mistake. You have persecuted and prosecuted yourself and put yourself in a jail, slammed the door, and thrown away the key, kids. It's ridiculous. We do this thing that may be good or it may be bad, but we did this thing, one thing. Now, what are you going to do with that? What did you learn from it? It's not something to take around like that little cloud over, who is it? Is it Pigpen in Peanuts that has the little dark cloud all the time? No. We all make mistakes. We all need to find what we learn from them. We need to forgive ourselves. We need to go on and have good lives. So a lot of this that is keeping you out of consciousness and enlightenment is how you do the energy. You're getting this in the moment. In the moment. So something is said, look at, this is what you're doing. You know, here's what I'm hearing, I'll say to you in session. And you'll go, oh, I can't believe I'm doing that. Oh, I thought I was farther along than that. Oh, you know, all this drama, kids. Instead of, oh, thank you. I get it. Okay. So that's fine with me to hear all that drama. It's just that I got to stop and come off that subject that I just found and go in and fix the drama. Take that away, because that isn't going to serve you. But look at the use of energy, guys. Just look at the use of energy. You're doing that instead of this. This is going to lead to your potential. That's just going to be a part of an old pattern. Doesn't take you anywhere except more entrenched in the old pattern. It's not in your best interest, my darling. You understand. Okay. It is a sustained journey into consciousness that leads to states of enlightenment. Now, what do you know in enlightenment? You know that God is present, working in you and through you and all things all the time. Every moment. So entirely that you experience the universe as the supportive place it is. Everything is here to support you. You never feel alone. It's impossible to feel ignored, dishonored, or unappreciated because you are honoring and listening to and appreciating yourself. Most people have a problem with that, guys, until you learn to do it. You see the gifts that the universe has given to all of us, but that we barely notice. The smile from a stranger across the lobby is a benediction, but we'll just completely forget it. Makes us feel good in the moment. It's only pleasure. It's nothing more. A flower blooming out of season, we go, oh, isn't that weird? Flower blooming out of season. We don't see that that's a gift. the odd benign mole on your back that propels you to the doctor so you may correct something more vital to your well-being. It never occurs to us that that's a gift, that everything is related, and that sometimes we are led on a path of least resistance to get to the truth, to get to fix something. I think the difference in receiving all that kind of information in the states of consciousness and enlightenment, and why they don't come to us in the ego child's mind, is the fact that the ego child's mind is closed. Oh, it's not entirely closed, or you wouldn't be listening to a show like this if you are still in it once in a while. It is that it is a closed mind a lot of the time, and we don't notice that it is closed. Therefore, where is our receiving of information like this, right? Okay. I don't like the word, to use the word, I love the word, magic. But I actually do believe that, this is just a magical world all around us. But that is not magical thinking. Magical thinking, darlings, is fantasy. Magical thinking is fantasy. Magical thinking doesn't have anything underneath it. Magical thinking, by the way, is the reason that when something happens, that life brings you, that is perceived as negative, you'll fall off the charts. You just won't be able to handle it. It's because magical thinking is fantasy. It's not real. It's not substance. It's not what you absolutely know beyond believing. And that's what we're trying to do, is get you there. Magical thinking is actually a disorder in the DSM. But everybody does it, whether they've been diagnosed as a magical thinker or not. Depends on the degree in which you are doing it. The people in the DSM, that the DSM is talking about, have more or less lost touch with reality. But what I'm talking about is for you to actually see and know what most people miss. I think I've said to you before, consciousness is not what most people live in the day-to-day. It's what most people miss. They're not seeing beyond. They're not making the inner connections that they should to some of this. Now, I also think that some of this is, and I hope I'm not stepping on anybody's toes, but I think sometimes that this is magical thinking goes into spirituality a lot, so that these people will say, I saw this as a sign. Well, guys, everything's is the outer reflects the inner, so I do believe that. But you're supposed to know, ultimately. You're not necessarily supposed to be given signs all the time. I can say, in terms of my own journey, this. When I first started this journey years ago, I had some absolutely remarkable, mind-blowing experiences. I was picking up things that I should not have, and that were highly dramatic, a little upsetting because I was so young and did not have any kind of advanced way of thinking about these things. But what it did was propelled me on a journey to find out what the hell was going on and who I was. That's great. Okay? What has happened in those years since have been enormously important to me, because all of that has gone away. What remains is an inner knowing that when God speaks from inside me, I simply know it's true. There is an absolute assurity for me. I don't look for signs. Signs aren't going to be there for you in the advanced states of consciousness. They're only there in the very beginning to get your attention, wake you up, and start you exploring and start you finding some answers for yourself. But in the advanced stages, they're quiet. This voice is in you. It takes the place of all this needing to look for externals. Guys, the answers are not in the externals. They're just simply there to show you what's inside. Imagine waking up tomorrow and knowing that only good things can happen, that only good can happen to you for the rest of your life. Imagine that you know the deeper levels of talent and abilities are here now and forthcoming on deeper and deeper levels of you for the rest of your life. Imagine knowing that you are absolutely safe. Absolutely safe. And that the pending divorce or downsizing is a wonderful opportunity to be happy and start you in a different direction of more. Yeah. Everything works together in perfect and undeniable cooperation and harmony, which, by the way, mirrors your own cooperation and harmony. And this is what I want to close today with. I think one of the most spiritual words in the world is cooperation. Cooperation with the higher self. Really, if I were going to distill what happens in the ego child's mind down to the difference in the ego child's mind and the higher self, not that I was articulate in that sentence, but if I were going to say there's a difference, the ego child's mind does not cooperate with anybody but itself. It's trying to be controlling, it's trying to get what it wants, it's floundering, it's doing the best it can, it's fantasizing, it's God knows what else it's doing, romanticizing. We have to learn, because nobody teaches us. Nobody, finest parents in the world, are not going to teach you what I'm about to say. And that is how to cooperate with the highest energies of God as you. One of the reasons is you can't hear them if you've got a lot of clutter in the emotional body. You can't hear that. But as we clear that out, kids, as you challenge yourself to come face to face with your emotional honesty and you give up all these old fixations and old stuck points of energy, you find that voice in you that is you, as the ascended God you are, comes forward. Thank you, sweetheart. I appreciate that a lot. And there it is. And your life will be changed forever. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing that you cannot push. But cooperation is the key. Cooperation is the key. We've got to learn to cooperate. Now, guys, I'll be back next week. All right? And I will see you then. I think that is, what is that? The 19th, right before our holiday. And you take good, sweet care of yourselves. Stay well and healthy out there. let's do a prayer to put us all on the same page and see what we can loosen up now in you, okay? So that you can be open to this great thing that you are beyond the ego child's mind. Okay. Dear God, thank you so much for the cooperation and the love that we all feel for each other and for you here. We know without a doubt that you are present. We feel it and we take it now inside of us to, thank you, Fabiola, to live in the world with this. Show us these openings in us this week, that we may know we are on the right path or that we're not, and that we must correct here and there and be brave in our pursuit of the truth of who we are. We thank you so much, dear God, for all of this. We say this prayer in your name, in the name of the Ascended Masters, our love-centered guides and friends, and in the name of each and every person listening to the show right now. We say thank you, dear God, thank you. Thank you for it all. And so it is. Amen. Guys, you can do a huge favor for me, and I would appreciate it so much, and that is please get the shows around that mean something to you. We have, I don't know how many, 100 shows or more on, because I've been doing this now for years, on Blog Talk Radio, Facebook Live, and certainly on YouTube. And anything that means something to you, if you would send it out through social media. If I'm not mistaken, I think you can send sometime the Blog Talk Radio things out. I think they have a little box. It's not on my screen, this master screen, but I think it might be on yours. And you can send radio shows or out. We sure would appreciate it. We're trying to expand our conscious community, and that means a lot. You're our advertisement, so thank you. And I hope these things do mean something to you. I love seeing all of you all and your beautiful faces. Thank you. Okay, guys, have a lovely week. Stay well and healthy out there. I'll see you next Sunday. Okay? God bless you. Bye-bye.